Duncan Dupes. I could see Russell Wilson in a Giants uniform. The Giants have draft capital, but similar to Seattle, their offensive line is super thin. One place I could see Wilson winding up is in Las Vegas, but would Mark Davis want to part ways with Derek Carr? It'll definitely be a story to watch in the offseason. What's Vegas going to do at quarterback? Are they pretty settled in on Derek Carr? Because he's a very underrated, underappreciated quarterback in the NFL.
He is, but man, you get the chance to get Russell Wilson. That's the kind of market that I'm talking about. Going to Vegas? That will be hot fire, dude. I'm going to Vegas just to see him if he ends up with the Raiders, buddy.
Oh, yeah. Okay. They're coming in fast and furious. We're going to get to the most coveted person in the Canadian Football League. Here's the comments that have come in, Justin. BW says, Danny Barrett. Danny Barrett's on the staff of the Houston Texans. He might be coveted. I don't think he's leaving Houston. Trent Bruner, who's watching in Norway. Merry Christmas, Trent. He says Kent Austin. John also said Kent Austin. Free Oleg said Ken Austin. Here's one out of left field. Northside YEG says Casey Printers. I don't know what Casey Printers is up to these days. That's out of left field. Ryan McCarthy says, I was going to say Anthony Calvillo, but he's a QB coach at the U of Montreal. That wouldn't stop Anthony Calvillo from being highly coveted. Somebody else mentioned Pinball, who's already got a job. Somebody said Tracy Ham, Doug Flutie. G. Roy Simon's name came up. Colin McAnulty says, I was going to say G. Roy Simon, but he was not a QB, just a great wide receiver. Christine said Huff. Hussey's Huddle said Danny McMannus. Jeffrey Townend says Dave Dickinson. Nelson Hackowich also says Danny McManus. Who is the most coveted person in the CFL? Justin Dunn.
Finally, we had two dudes hit it there. It is the one and only man known as Danny Mac, who has been integral as a U.S. scout for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and the front office in Ottawa would like him to come there and help build out their U.S. talent. And also in Edmonton, it would be a guy that Chris Jones would covet there. So it might surprise some people, and judging by a lot of the responses there, Dupes, it's not somebody that a ton of people had, but credit, and I forget the names there, but two of them had Danny Mac. And that is the guy right now that is the hottest name that is coveted by multiple franchises in the CFL to build them into cup contenders. Of course, he's already proven he can do that and win multiple cups with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
Yeah, it's been pretty impressive, but until the Grey Cups, we don't really see Danny McManus. And, you know, there's times in the last half a dozen years where you wonder, where is Danny Mac? What's he doing? You kind of forget about him. He was a player. I loved watching Danny McManus play quarterback when I was growing up. So what's Danny's end goal in all of this? What is his future in football? Or is it what he's doing now, you know, in that scouting department and finding players? What's Danny McManus's future look like in the CFL?
Yeah, at some point, and you get the bigger title and more money, you're going to want to be a general manager in the CFL. But currently, McManus has this vast network in the United States. And we got to remember, he was great in the CFL, but he was the quarterback of Florida State. Like, this guy knows a lot of people just from getting that position and being the starter for the Seminoles for a number of years. So that's how he's developed this scouting network throughout the United States. And really, when you have a football operations cap that's trimmed down, you can only have so many guys in the front office. Having a guy like McManus who can help you cover, you know, essentially most of the United States with a little bit of help there. We should give some credit. Teddy Gavaya does a lot of American scouting as well. So between the two of them, they cover that off. Gavaya also does a lot of Canadian scouting contracts, helps with the salary cap there in Winnipeg, and of course was a finalist against Chris Jones in Edmonton. So it's not just McManus, but McManus has the cachet around the league right now because they know, they being the teams that want to fill these roles in the front office, that if you bring McManus in, he brings this vast network and can get you a bunch of guys on your roster, like, let's say, a Jackson Jeffcoat, who has been born and bred essentially in Winnipeg into a star to help you build a potential cup contender.
Teams are often, you know, victims of their own success, and that's kind of a case of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. You're good, you win Grey Cups, and now everybody wants your people. So should fans be worried in Winnipeg that at the top, some key people might not be back because they've just been in line? They're in line for promotions. Is that a concern for the Blue Bombers moving forward?
It will be, because it's going to be difficult, right? When you have a guy like Ted Gavai have interest from Ottawa and Edmonton and go down to the wire in Edmonton as a general manager, right? Just naturally, any of us in these positions, we're going to want more say and potentially, and obviously, more money for what we've done, right? And that's just like the players on the field. Everyone that was part of that team, especially on that roster that won back-to-back Grey Cups, is going to want more money. So that's what happens in the front office as well. And you get the teams that are at the bottom, like in Ottawa and in Edmonton, who respectively in the East and the West were last place this past season. Then you're going to want to pay up for a guy like McMannus to come in there to help you with your U.S. talent. Now, Ottawa probably needs more of the help than Edmonton, because you bring in Jones and he has so many connections in the United States and he loves to get out there and scout that he'll do a bulk of that. But from what I've heard, Jones would want McMannus, given his choice, to come there to Edmonton. So yeah, if you're a Winnipeg Blue Bombers fan, you're certainly worried, and there's always going to be change. So I think that's what the front offices need to be prepared for. The key with the Bombers is that it looks like Michael Shea is going to stay there, Kyle Walters the general manager, and hopefully if they lose McMannus, if you're a Winnipeg fan, you can find somebody else to help you out in those areas, although admittedly it won't be to the level of Danny Mack.
Yeah, and that's interesting too. We've put out an APB on KC Printers, and we've got a result back from Ryan McCarthy in New York. He said KC Printers is currently a motivational speaker. So good to know that Casey's doing well, and he was a wonderful personality in the CFL. I love KC Printers. Yeah, Nelson Hackowich was the one who got Danny Mack first, I believe, his first one I saw. So that was good. I don't know why, but Scott Flory's name is now popping up in the YouTube chat. Something he said, John mentioned Scott Flory will be an excellent Saskatchewan Riders head coach. Well, they already have a head coach. I think Free Oleg said, just a matter of time until Scott Flory is a head coach in the CFL. Is that a path? You and I have worked with Scott Flory quite closely over the last number of years. We've seen him become really comfortable as a head coach and really come into his own and develop a real personality. I've never talked to him about aspirations beyond the University of Saskatchewan Huskies. Do you think it's on the timetable or the timeline for Scott Flory?
In my mind, Dupes, and we've talked to him a bunch of times, he's not going to even entertain that conversation with us, right? Because he's so focused on the moment and what's right in front of him. But if you look at the way that, especially for me, that he changed his mannerisms and he was really working on things in terms of not showing off any negative energy or yelling or screaming at his players in 2021, in my mind, that helped the Huskies take that next step and get to the Vanier Cup. So he's very cognizant of those things. Clearly, he's got the backing of Mark Trestman. I spoke to him during Vanier Cup week. Trestman had great things to say about him. All the way back when he was a player, Trestman was saying, hey, you better not just pay attention in film here to what the offensive line is doing, because if you're going to coach your kids in Pop Warner football one day, essentially Adam or Tyke in Canada, then you need to know what's going on. Well, Trestman joked that he's not just coaching his kids. He's taken Canadian University team to the Vanier Cup. So he's at that level. And in my mind, we've seen it. Greg Marshall, who had a wonderful run with the McMaster Marauders, then became the head coach in Hamilton after that. They won 4 Yates Cups in a row, didn't win a Vanier Cup, but still he had that success that led to him going there. Kyle Walters, we just mentioned him. He was a head coach at the University of Guelph, got into Winnipeg as a special teams guy, was doing some personnel, now is in the general manager's chair. So if Flory continues to have this success, and especially sustained success, then his name is going to become hotter and hotter in terms of the CFL. And we've talked about it throughout the show, Dupes. Often money talks. So if you can make more money in the CFL and it's that next challenge for Flory, we know how competitive he is. You could potentially see him there in the future.
Justin Dunk, football insider and lead insider at 3downnation.com, is with us here from his hometown in Guelph. I'm at my hometown in Wynyard at the high school. And coming up a little bit later on here in the next segment, Arash Madani from Sportsnet, who we're going to get into some tennis talk with Arash. I know you play with Arash a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to get a little 2022 outlook on Canadian tennis and some of our superstars, and find out just how good. I'm going to find out how good you are at tennis, because we've never played, Justin. And it's on the docket. It's one of the New Year's resolutions that at some point in 2022, we're going to have a match, okay?
Yes, sir. Mark it down.
Okay. We'll stick on the CFL topic for this segment. We'll bring you back in for overtime. But JC, I think, wrote the article about one player that every team needs to get prepared to move on from. And there were two standouts here that are going to not feel good for fan bases. The first one in Hamilton was Brandon Banks. Time to move on from Brandon Banks. Not the same guy from a year, 2, 3 years ago, seasons ago, I guess 2 years ago would be the last time he was on the field. And the other one was Andrew Harris in Winnipeg. And I know Blue Bomber fans don't want to hear that, but he's in his mid-30s. His numbers are going to start declining. Is it time? Do you go along with JC that it's time for Hamilton and Winnipeg to move on from these two superstars?
So yeah, let's just make it clear. That was JC Abbott's take, and I'll give you mine right here now on these players. I'll start in the Hammer because I'm close to there. I'm literally going to CH later today to do my sportscast there. So in terms of Brandon Banks, he's been there forever, right? And for a long time, really up until this season, he was known as the most explosive player in the CFL. In my mind, Lucky Whitehead took that coveted title away from him. Whitehead was unbelievable. But what JC's getting at in his article is that you just need to be careful. And Banks said it himself in his end of season media availability when I was questioning him. He said, I understand that I'm not going to be the highest paid guy anymore, right? We've seen some of his comments on Twitter in the past and wanting to be the highest paid receiver, but he's taken on, and I hate this because it's cliche, but he really has taken on a leadership role in Hamilton and helped mentor some of these younger receivers, a Jalen Acklin, a Tim White, a Pappy White that's gotten in a little bit, a Stephen Dunbar Jr. who was playing at X, that weak side receiver position that normally Banks would line up at. Dunbar Jr. was there a lot. So I think the Ticats are going to bring Banks back. It'll be at a bargain rate. I think Speedy wants to be back, but he already realizes it's not going to be for that kind of money. And when you talk about money, that's the real key with Andrew Harris, right? He's used to making $200,000+ a year. Now, his production has not yet slipped, and I think age in a lot of cases is just a number, and it has become that with Harris. JC's point in the article, and I think it's well taken, is that Brady Oliveira is there. He's shown he can rush the rock as the main dude, not for an entire season, but he had a couple 100-yard games. And then they have Johnny Augustine by way of the University of Guelph, who is an absolute freak of nature in terms of seeing him in the gym. That dude is rocked up. So they got some running backs that they're stacking there behind Harris for whenever he moves on. I feel like it's going to be really difficult whenever that does happen with Harris because he is the hometown star, because he has won back-to-back Grey Cups. But this team is so good that you would imagine Harris is going to want to at least think about seeing, can we continue this legacy that I've built here and make it a dynasty? I feel like you win 3 Grey Cups in a row or 3 Grey Cups in 4 years, then we can start talking that big D word. And that's going to at least intrigue Harris, but he's likely not going to be able to get as much in terms of his salary because they got to try to keep this team together if they want to keep winning.
One question from Nelson Hakowicz. Is Lucky Whitehead headed back to the Bombers with his appearance in the crowd at the West Final? Was he foreshadowing something that Lucky wants to come back to Winnipeg?
I mean, everybody saw him in the crowd, and he had the Winnipeg toucan, I believe it was, but he did say he showed up to that game wearing BC Lions gear. Now, in my mind, Whitehead's going to be a guy that's going to go to the highest bidder, right? So if he's a dude that is out there and you're a team looking to make a quick turnaround, let's say like in Ottawa or in Edmonton, I don't know how you couldn't make a high bid to bring that guy in. He's an instant game changer. It was too bad what happened, that unfortunate injury with his hand. He even tried to come back in the game with broken digits and try to catch the rock. So I don't necessarily think he'll end up back in Winnipeg, but he'll go to one of those teams that's looking to make a quick turnaround.
Awesome stuff, Justin. We'll see you back here for overtime. How about that?
Yeah, buddy.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching the RP Show on YouTube. And don't forget, we're live daily on YouTube from noon to 2 Eastern. If you like what you see, hit subscribe. And if you like the program, check around for other segments of The Rod Pedersen Show here on YouTube.